Quad's foreign ministers calls for just and lasting peace in Ukraine. The foreign ministers of Quad on Friday called for lasting peace in Ukraine and concurred without naming Russia that the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons is inadmissible. The issue figured at a meeting among External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, his Japanese counterpart Yoshimasa Hayashi and Australia's Penny Wong and Indian. In a joint statement, the foreign ministers said they underscored the need for a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine in accordance with international law. Tony Blair said absurd that India is not a permanent member. Of course we are talking about United Nations Security Council. It is absurd to think that India is not a permanent member of UNSC, but you can say that for other countries as well. The West has no option but to share the power. The question is how to make sense of diplomacy in this new world. He is former UK Prime Minister. Quad leaders says Russia's nuclear weapon threat is inadmissible. Foreign ministers of the Quad grouping on Friday condemned as inadmissible Russia's threat to use nuclear weapons in its ongoing conflict against Ukraine and underscored the need for a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine. We continued to discuss our responses to the conflict in Ukraine and the immense human suffering it is causing, and concurred that the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons is inadmissible, read a joint statement by the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue or Quad, which groups the United States, Japan, Australia, and India. After all of that, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi on Friday sought to draw an analogy between legendary English rock band The Beatles with the Quad, referring to the grouping of Japan, Australia, the US and India as more of a soft Beatles where every member may release a solo album of their own. Sergei Lavrov on reacting Quad meeting said, "The idea promoted by our American friends of ASEAN plus Quad is openly aimed at ruining East Asia summits. In other words, it means East Asia summits minus China and Russia." And he also said, "We never engage in playing any country against any other country, but this is, unfortunately, is being tried by some other outside players in the context of so-called Indo-Pacific strategy, using Quad not for economic purpose but trying to militarize it. We've excellent relations with China and India. The relations with India are characterized in official documents signed by the two leaders as a specially privileged strategic partnership. I don't know whether any other country has the same status on paper officially." Then he remembered the bombing of Serbia by USA and said, "They don't remember when Serbia was bombed. Joe Biden, being a senator at that time, was bragging that I promoted this approach. When Iraq was ruined as a state, few years later Tony Blair said it was a mistake. After that the host India, by targeting China, said that they strongly oppose any unilateral actions that seek to change the status quo or increase tensions in South and East China Seas. India on Quad meeting said underscored the need for a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine in accordance with international law, including the UN Charter. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, "We, Quad, are now engaged in working together to help countries to deal with humanitarian situations in natural disasters. We are working on things that are really critical. This is not a military group. For U.S. future is Indo-Pacific, we are rightly focused on what is happening in Ukraine. If we allow Russia to do what it is doing in Ukraine, then that's a message to the aggressors everywhere that they may be able to get away with it.